Hello everybody, welcome to Snyder's Inc. And today we have another Tragic Tales video. This is he live streamed his Doom clips before horror number 2. We will get right into this, ladies and gentlemen. Hit the like button and subscribe button, comment your thing down below. If you'd like to help the channel out with a donation, you can leave a super thanks or link to my PayPal's in the description. Let's go.
Decisions, decisions, decisions. We all make them, our lives are driven by them. Do you turn left or do you turn right? At the time, these choices may seem inconsequential, but these are usually the most punishing. A quick Google search reveals that we make an astonishing 35,000 choices a day, with 227 of those choices being just about food. Because life can go either way on any given day, here are 10 pieces of footage captured moments before disaster. This footage shows that no matter how safe you feel while you're conducting outdoor activities, it can all go wrong in seconds. In October of 2022, a 39-year-old man by the name of Sergio was on holiday in Brazil with his girlfriend. While they were there, Sergio and his partner did various activities, but Sergio desperately wanted to do a zip line, so that's exactly what he did. On October the 10th, 2022, Sergio and his partner made their way to Canoa Quebrada, a place in northeastern Brazil where they booked an epic zip line. When they arrived, Sergio equipped his harness, took out his phone, and without much thought, leapt off into the sand dunes. As captured on video, Sergio can be seen smiling as the wind slipped through his hair. He can be heard shouting for joy and in total awe at the entire experience. He's clearly having the time of his life. As he picked up speed, Sergio came to the middle point of the zip line. As he passes the halfway point, with no warning whatsoever, the entire zipline collapses. With the man suspended in mid-air, all of a sudden, he came crashing down to earth.
How on earth does a zipline just collapse? Like, that has to be that has to have no safety. Right? Like, that has to be no safety precautions taken. Because how on earth does just a zipline just fucking collapse like that?
All captured on video, he slams into the sand at great speed. His partner, who was also filming Sergio on the line, captured the moment the entire zipline collapsed. Staff members rushed over and paramedics were called, but sadly, Sergio had sustained significant injuries in the fall. They could not save his life. When the authorities did investigate, they found a wooden pylon had come clean out of the sand at one end. Sergio just wanted to have fun, and it cost him his life. His girlfriend had to return home by herself. His family later hired a lawyer who was accused the private operator of negligence, but as this is fairly recent, lawsuits are still ongoing.
My gut says there has to be something, right? Because unless I'm really stupid, I would think a fucking zipline would have to be very secure. I feel like it would have to be very, very secure. Just the thought of a pylon just moves a little bit and the whole fucking thing collapses seems very unsafe. Oh, we got 9 of these, okay.
At the start of 2019, a 47-year-old Japanese man by the name of Tetsu Shiohara, known online as Tetsu, was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Tetsu was described as a kind and quiet person. He had few friends and lived a secluded life. The doctors told him he had a 1% chance of survival, but despite this, he continued on with treatment and didn't let it affect his happiness. The diagnosis did, however, change his view on life. He immediately quit his job as a lawyer and said that he would live his life, not work it. For years before the diagnosis, Tetsu streamed his entire life, whether that be visiting the shop, cooking dinner, or going for a walk. Viewers said that he was in good spirits and confident that he would recover. Despite streaming a lot over a couple of years, he only got a few subscribers here and there, until October the 28th, 2019. Tetsu wanted to push the boat out. He went live streaming on a site named Nico Nico with the title of Let's Go Snowy Mount Fuji. And as soon as the stream began, he crossed over closed barricades that clearly said no climbers and made his way up the mountain.
So he was just being reckless here. He lived life to the fullest, but also was incredibly reckless with his life. I understand wanting to live life to the fullest, but you gotta be safe and legal when you do it, and this is unsafe. You're not meant to be climbing this thing, it's closed off for a reason.
Now, Mount Fuji is the highest mountain in Japan, with a summit elevation of 12,391 feet, or around 3,777 meters. In October, it's the off-season. The mountain is covered with slick ice and snow, and is officially closed for climbers, but there's nothing actually stopping anyone going up there if they so wish. At this time of year, the mountain is no longer an easy hike, but a heavy mountaineering expedition that needs proper planning and equipment. Tetsu did not know this, or he did, but he chose to do it anyway.
Boss, I think it's the second one.
Tetsu began his expedition wearing tennis shoes, thin streetwear, and brought only climbing poles, a pair of inadequate gloves, and his smartphone.
Yeah, he was being very... This is incredibly reckless here. This is reckless.
As he climbed, he complained of frostbite in his fingers, but insisted that he must continue to get to the peak for his livestream. Despite all of these things working against him, Tetsu reached the summit. But this is when it all goes wrong. The snow broke beneath Tetsu's feet, and he slipped. He slid down the mountain face and could be seen trying to grab onto anything, jamming his climbing poles into the ice, but it was futile. He didn't bring any specialist equipment to save himself. As he struggled to grab onto anything, in a flurry of snow, Tetsu flew over the precipice and tumbled down the mountain, all while his viewers watched live. As he fell, the live stream soon stopped, and his viewers immediately notified the authorities.
Thank you for not showing that. I don't know if I need to see that, to be honest.
The next day, Tetsu's frozen body was discovered over 3,200 feet, or around 1,000 meters below from where he'd fallen. While Tetsu went on to be the first Japanese person to officially win a Darwin Award, his death says a lot about life in general. Live it to the fullest, but don't live it so large that it kills you.
Don't live it recklessly. Keep safety in mind when you do it.
Talking about living it too large, this nail-biting footage begins in China, in a large ancient city known as Changsha. In Changsha, among other skyscrapers, resides the Huaiyan International Center. Now, this international center is a massive 62-story skyscraper completed in 2007. While many people go there to visit the mall or its various starred hotels, a 26-year-old man by the name of Wu Yongning was there for a very different reason. Wu was the definition of a thrill seeker.
Oh, I know exactly what this one is. I've seen this video before. This is fucked.
Being dubbed China's first rooftopper, he was often referred to as the Chinese Superman. He was well known for his breathtaking stunts that he would then go and post online. These clips featured him hanging off buildings, performing extremely dangerous parkour over 1,000-meter drops. It seemed there was nothing he couldn't do. Until Wednesday, November the 8th, Wu made his way to the Huaiyan International Center, where here he planned to make yet another video. As Wu had planned to propose to his girlfriend the following day, he focused on producing as much content as possible to make as much money as possible. That morning, he made his way up 42 flights of stairs before climbing the exterior of the building with zero safety gear for 20 floors. After doing this, he finally reached the roof. Here, he placed his camera down to record himself and began his heart-stopping stunts. Wu lowered himself over the edge of the building and began doing pull-ups for the camera. He does this several times before it seems he's struggling to pull up any further. He pulls and he pulls, but he just can't get himself up. He had used too much energy getting to this point. Within a blink of an eye, Wu just let go. He then fell approximately 147 feet or 47 meters below onto a terrace, where sadly he suffered fatal injuries. His body was later found by a window cleaner. Wu's social media went quiet for around a month before his girlfriend announced his tragic death. Many questioned why he pushed himself to do this solo, but it's not like an extra person would have saved him. Chinese officials warned against others doing this perilous pastime and called for more supervision of the live streaming apps.
I'm surprised this is just a thing. Like, I'm surprised there are people this insane, because this doesn't even make sense logically on why you would do this. Like, why would you climb up a building barely secure, or like no thought out? That was gonna happen. I'm sorry, but it was gonna happen to him eventually. He was just playing a dangerous game. He's playing with death, and death was always winning.
Base jumping is a roulette. It's one of the most dangerous sports in the world, having a death and injury rate 43 times higher than parachuting from a plane. According to one study, base jumping has a fatality rate of 1 in every 60 jumpers. Nobody knew this better than Dwayne Weston. Dwayne was an Australian skydiver and a professional wingsuiter. He was one of the first to introduce aerobatics to the sport, and in 2002, he won the world title in base jumping.
He was considered to be the craziest base jumper on the planet, doing things that were just beyond possible.
On the 5th of October 2003, Dwayne participated in the inaugural Go Fast Games. That day, he put on his wingsuit and leapt out of an aeroplane thousands of feet above ground. His last words before the jump were, "Whatever happens, happens." Dwayne shot through the air like a bullet, whipping and contorting while crowds waited at various locations to catch a glimpse. It was all going well until it came to the Royal Gorge Bridge. As spectators stood by watching, Dwayne could be seen flying towards them in the distance. He got closer and closer, and as he did, it became very clear he had made a fatal miscalculation. Before anyone knew it, Dwayne slammed into the bridge at 100 miles an hour. He struck a bridge.
Oh! To what? To? Because to be him, because you think everything's going fine, and then you fucking hit the bridge and you're fucking dead. Imagine being the people watching. You're seeing him get closer and closer, then he finally makes contact with the bridge. Oh my god.
Railing before activating his parachute and hurtling below, landing on a rock face roughly 300 feet from the bottom of the gorge. Everyone was utterly gobsmacked at what they had just witnessed. Dwayne's injuries were catastrophic.
Yeah.
The impact had severed one of his legs, punctured a lung, and fractured his neck. He lay there bleeding out at the bottom of the gorge. Paramedics were called and they rushed to his aid, but by then he had bled to death. Dwayne is still considered one of the sport's pioneers. His legend may never be matched, and may he rest in peace. While bullfighting is illegal in the UK, today bullfighting is permitted in countries such as Spain, France, Mexico, Colombia, and Venezuela. Many consider bullfighting an important part of their culture and an art form, but a cruel one at that. It's thought that around 250,000 bulls are killed in bullfights and festivals every year. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of the idea. It's cruel and a recipe for tragedy. But tragedy is exactly what happened on Sunday.
You know, the more I think about this, because I used to think bullfighting was fine, they put a thought into it. The more I think about it, I feel like I'm on the side of the bull when the bullfighting happens.
June the 26th, 2020.
I don't want the bull to just get mad at some point and just fucking cause havoc.
Hundreds of spectators gathered to watch a bullfight for the popular San Pedro festival in El Espinal, Colombia. around 100 miles southwest of the capital. The traditional Corralejo event involved members of the public entering the ring to antagonize the bull. That fateful day, as the show began, crowds began to chant and clap, and over 1,000 people clambered into a poorly made 3-story wooden stand. Soon, a raging bull was let into the arena, and random people were selected to go against the beast. It was all going as well as you'd expect, when all of a sudden, a loud crack was heard beneath the spectators. Without a second's warning, the very floor beneath them, on the right side of the arena, began to collapse. Hundreds of people found themselves buried in rubble, and if they weren't buried, they now found themselves in a live bull pit. In the chaos, people fought to free themselves from the debris. Many people jumped in the pit on purpose to distract the bull from those trapped. And while emergency services worked to free people from the rubble, it was clear that many more were injured, and some were still buried deep within the rubble. At day's end, more than 500 were injured in the ordeal, and sadly, 7 people lost their lives. Petro, Colombia's first leftist to be elected president, said he urged local governments to not authorize any more spectacles involving the death of people or animals. But at the time of writing this, no rules or law changes have been made to outlaw these cruel fights.
That's so weird. Why do you people keep that going? Like, what is it about bullfighting that makes people have to keep it going, keep it legal? I don't get it.
In the city of Jingzhou, China, in 2015, it was an ordinary day for the Zhang family as they visited their local multiplex store named the Analang Store Department. Li Zhang and her husband, along with their 2-year-old son, arrived at the ground floor. As soon as they arrived, her son impatiently wanted to go on the escalator. So, leaving her husband, she accompanied her child toward it. She grabbed onto the handle, took hold of her son,
Oh, I know this one sucks.
and stepped forward. Suddenly, voices could be heard from above. Staff members shouted a warning to say that there was a loose panel floor, but by then, it was too late. Realizing that something was dangerously wrong, Li Zhang picked up her son, and the minute they arrived on the first floor, they stepped onto the loose, broken panel. The panel that they stood on fell loose, and immediately she dropped. But just before she did, she heroically pushed her child over to the staff member. As she did this, the machine clung to her. Pulling her in, it dragged her into the inner workings of the escalator, and her body was crushed. The employees watched in horror as they quickly took the child away. Of course, Li Zhang died instantly. This was a tragedy that could have been easily avoided, a tragedy that didn't need to happen, and a tragedy that left a son without a mother. It didn't help that Analang.
Why were there no signs? Why was the escalator still running? Like, this could have easily been stopped. Just turn the escalator off, because this is what my mall does. Turn off the escalator, and you put a sign, make sure you can't enter it.
Had at least 5 minutes of warning to prevent this outcome. At 10:05, just 5 minutes before this event, 2 workers almost fell beneath that same floor plate. These 2 workers contacted the upper management, but upper management decided to do nothing but keep an eye out. It could be argued that the 2 workers should have warned the mother before stepping forward onto the escalator. It's unknown why she was allowed to get on there anyway. And while there can be an excuse made for these workers, there is no excuse for the reason behind all of this. A man named Chen, Director of Safety Supervision for the city, reported that this all happened because someone in maintenance installed the flooring incorrectly, which ultimately led to this disaster.
I blame them and upper management, because upper management, once I hear, hey, there's a loose floor, I'm going to, stop the escalator from working. We're not letting people on it. No one's allowed on an escalator.
This tragic footage begins on April the 9th, 2015. An 85-year-old man by the name of Clem Schultz was at his home in Fairdale, Illinois with his wife, Geraldine, who he always referred to as Jerry. Now, Clem and Jerry had been married for 25 years. They built a life together that was filled with love, laughter, and happiness. This continued up until that fateful day. Clem and Jerry woke up and had their breakfast. There was a light breeze in the air, but absolutely nothing to cause concern. Until around midday on April the 9th, the SPC issued a 10% hatch tornado threat across much of northern Illinois and small portions of nearby states. This detailed the potential for several tornadoes, of which one or two had the potential to be pretty strong, at least EF2 on the enhanced Fujita scale, so around 111 to 135 miles per hour or stronger. Because they'd seen it all before and thought that it wouldn't affect them, they decided that they'd wait it out in their house. Later that day, the pair had just finished eating supper when they heard a subtle rumbling noise in the distance. They knew without even looking, it was a tornado. They glanced out the window to confirm their worries. A huge, deadly tornado had formed and was swooping its way across their small town. Now this was no small tornado, this was an EF4 tornado, much stronger than was predicted. An EF4 tornado is capable of reaching speeds up to 200 miles an hour and capable of dealing incredible amounts of damage to homes and infrastructure. As it swept by, it caused catastrophic damage. Houses were destroyed, trees were toppled, and debris was scattered everywhere. Clem rushed upstairs to the top floor of the house and began recording with his phone, while his wife remained in the kitchen.
I've heard different stories on why he's up there. Does anyone have a concrete answer? Because I've heard so many different versions of why he ends up upstairs.
Downstairs.
To film.
They both prayed it would go straight past them. You can see in the video the angry tornado as it whirled away in the distance. Its dark, ominous presence instilled dread in all that saw it. The tornado does look like it may go straight past them until it switches direction and begins heading right towards Clem and his wife. It got closer and closer, and within 2 minutes, they were now in the eye of the storm. The recording soon goes black, and all that can be heard is violent wind, destroying anything it came into contact with. And just like that, as quickly as it had come, it was gone. The recording went quiet, and nothing could be heard but a gentle breeze. The tornado had completely destroyed their house. The chimney came down on Clem, crushing his hand and vertebrae, but luckily, he survived. Tragically, his wife Jerry was not so lucky. She was crushed as the house collapsed around her. Here, underneath all that rubble, Clem remained trapped until he was spotted by tornado spotters, who just so happened to be in the right place at the right time. As people helped heave him out of the debris, one of them told him, "Don't look down because your wife is under you, and she's dead."
Why would you tell someone that, first of all? Oh my god, I'd hate to hear that, man. Oh my god.
Clem's life was never the same after that day.
Oh no.
The phone that was used to record this video was later recovered in the rubble, and apparently Clem went on to make a full recovery. This chaotic footage originates from Itaewon, South Korea, on October the 29th, 2022. Itaewon is a multicultural commercial area in Seoul. It's one of the most popular neighborhoods, known for its nightlife and fashionable restaurants.
Okay.
However, that night, people weren't there to eat. They were there for the infamous Halloween celebrations. That, paired with the rumor of a celebrity being in town, it was due to be a night to remember. As the Halloween celebrations were not technically an official event, the local police did not employ stewards to handle the crowd. On October the 27th, just 2 days before, police estimated that around 100,000 people would attend the Halloween streets, but weirdly, they only announced plans to deploy 200 officers.
That's just dumb. That's not even like... That's just idiocracy. You're an idiot. They're idiots. That's an idiot move. There is no way that is an idiot thing to do. That is so idiotic that even I wouldn't do that. And I'm an idiot savant, so I can't. But you're an idiot.
Red flags were raised, stating that this would not be enough, but they did not listen. To put it in perspective, 6,500 officers had been assigned that very night to manage demonstrations in the South Korean capital. However, just 25,000 people were there that night. As the day began, the narrow streets of Seoul began to be filled with the throngs of costume revelers. the annual Halloween festivities were just getting underway. By lunchtime, 81 streets were already brimming with excited children and adults, all dressed in a variety of spooky costumes. But as the night went on, the streets began to become far more densely packed than expected. At around 9 PM, a very narrow downhill alley near the Hamilton Hotel began becoming extremely packed with partygoers. As hundreds, if not thousands of people headed down the tight alleyway connected to Iton Row, the main street of the district, many found that there was nowhere to move. At 9:16 PM, a live streamer went to a police station around 10 meters away from the alley, warning the police that the crowd was dangerously dense. This was, however, ignored, and the live stream was later deleted. At least 79 emergency calls were made to 112 between 6 and 8 PM, with the first being made at 6:34 PM. They were all reporting that crowds were becoming dangerously packed, but again, the police officials ignored these calls, and the police officers that were on duty stood by as it became out of control.
Let me guess, the Japanese thing, we're like, look, we could have never known it would become packed and dangerous like this. We were never told that we could be this packed and dangerous. We were out of the loop, completely out of the loop. It was just complete accident that this all happened. We totally would have handled this responsibly if we were told. 100%. We're innocent here.
A fun night out soon turned into a nightmare for all. The lane that the partygoers had been funneled into slopes upward from Iton Row and eventually meets with another street. This caused people to be packed and pushed downward along the narrow segment. People who found themselves at the top of the slope could do nothing but fall onto those below. As the panic grew, at approximately 8 minutes past 10, screams could be heard echoing from the alleyway. But when people investigated, the crush had already spread. It was pure pandemonium. Videos made by eyewitnesses showed hundreds of people compressed in an alleyway that measured just 10.5 feet, or 3.2 meters. The stack of bodies at one point was...
This is insane of how easily this could somewhat be handled if police and government gave literally any fuck about this. But they didn't. They're like, no. The demonstrations are more important. We gotta say that, please. They're not. Where there's 2,000 people, we gotta handle 2,000 people getting like 2,000, like a shit ton of officers. The one that has 400,000 people, nah, 200 can handle that. Idiots.
Was apparently 5 or 6 people deep. Around that same time, emergency officials said that at least 11 calls were made by people experiencing compressive suffocation. 4 ambulances were dispatched, but the large crowd made it extremely difficult for ambulances to get to those in need. This ultimately meant that those who were in critical condition did not receive resuscitation in a timely manner. Finally, in all the chaos, a dent was made in the crowd, but as hundreds fled from the alley, the full scale of the tragedy unfolded. Dozens and dozens of unconscious people appeared from the stacks. Paramedics, police, and bystanders assisted by desperately performing CPR, but it had been a long time to be stuck without breath. Videos on social media showed absolute horror as people in costumes who had been out to just enjoy their day lent a hand to try to resuscitate those who weren't breathing. Some survivors claimed that because business hours were over, nearby establishments blocked people from entering to escape the crush. And in regards to how it started, one person said that the crush started when a group of young men pushed others into people until they started falling, but this was never proven. 83 more ambulances.
I could buy it knowing the way dipshits are at a young age. I can see a bunch of young people just shoving people around because they're a little get lightly bumped, so they just full on shove it. I can see it.
Arrived on site as late as 1:45 midnight, but this only made the crowd worse. Sadly, emergency workers did not manage to get everyone out of the crush until well after midnight. As hundreds performed CPR in the street, many realized it was far too late. Bodies soon began piling up on the streets, covered with blankets and clothing. By the next morning, the streets were finally quiet and the brutal death toll was announced. Tragically, 158 people lost their lives on a street that should have never been allowed to get that crowded. As the people of Seoul mourned the dead, many pointed the finger towards the local authorities. The police only deployed 137 officers out of the 200 allocated. What made it even worse is that the officers that were on duty were focused on drug crimes instead of crowd control measures. The government officially commented and said that it was impossible to predict the mass of people. However, this is heavily refuted by urban planning experts. Many of the survivors now have to live their life with PTSD. On November the 2nd, the National Police raided the city's police departments, and as part of the investigation, 2 police officers were arrested for suspicion of professional negligence. They were also accused of destroying evidence and fleeing when they were needed most. But this was an absolute tragedy, and a completely avoidable one at that. But what do you think? I'm interested.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for this reaction video. Let me know what you think to these in the comments. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all for the next one.